Action! Activate!
What's going on? It's me, Gazbot. This is Action Activate, and of course, with me as always,
Big Dawg Defender here. Let's get it going, Gazbot.
We're going to get it going, Big Dog. We are going to get it going big time. We are talking about Power Rangers Beast Morphers, Season 2, Episode 4. What's it called? Artist?
That's a great question.
Artist Anonymous?
I should have wrote it down.
Anonymous. Something about an anonymous artist. That's what it's called. When we get into the
Artist
side...
Anonymous is its known on Action Activate.
There you go. It's the alliteration of the A and A. We should have known that. We should have known that, Big Dog.
I know.
Well,
Eastwood.
For those that don't know, this show was previously live on Twitch. We are now exclusively on YouTube, so we won't have a live chat. However, feel free to comment below, and we will address those in the following show if need be, or we will just respond to you in chat, not in chat, in the comment section.
We will let you know our thoughts and feelings as we always do.
Feelings, thoughts. I'm going to actually, if you look down here, there's like a little slideshow area. It starts off with the Grid Battle Force base and like a nice Twilight scene, which I took a shot of just because I'd never seen them do that. It was just kind of like nice. But what I was trying to get to, Artist Anonymous. That is the title, in case there was any ambiguity. You were right.
Ninja Steel.
No. I said it first, I think. Or maybe I said anonymous artist.
You know what? Let's not dwell on the details.
We're starting really good.
There's enough to dwell on in this episode. So,
okay.
Per recent tradition,
yes.
Initial review thoughts.
I like this episode.
Rating. I did not like it as much as previous episodes.
I definitely liked it better than last week.
I didn't like it as much as last week.
All right. Well, once again, we're not agreeing. We were agreeing a lot for a while, and now we're back to disagreeing.
Well, it's funny because some of the episodes were like, I totally agree, and then there was a huge turn where it's like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think this one will be as contentious as last episode.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But no, I enjoyed it, and as we get into it, I'll explain why. But so it's art. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Artist...
I was gonna say.
You can't say go for it and then talk. It doesn't work that way.
Well,
that's like saying I got it, and then putting your hand down.
What I will say, and then you can go into it, is there were parts of this episode I loved, but I felt like the concepts were better than the execution at times.
We'll disagree about that in the future.
All right, go for it now officially.
Okay.
I'll be quiet.
So it starts off, we see this wall that has graffiti all over it. It says Artist Anonymous. And it's not about the graffiti because we then see Ravi painting over it. And my first thought was, oh, this is like typical community service. The Rangers are cleaning up graffiti, whatever. But then when he painted the whole wall like that, I was like, oh, wait, is this like an Ravi the Artist episode? And it is, because he paints a whole mural of like a beach scene and everything. Is it the greatest art I've ever seen? No, but it's fine. It's competent. It's believable that he could do it, and it's believable that it would be on a wall, and he wasn't being paid or anything. So like that all worked fine for me, and I like that we were bringing back Ravi's artistic, inspiration stuff.
I agree. When I first saw him paint and it was blue, I'm like, of course he's painting it blue.
Oh,
and
I didn't even think of that.
Beach scene. Yeah, that was my first thought. I'm like, really? What?
If anything, it would be deeper blue, though, if it was like matching his suit.
I know, but that was my like knee-jerk reaction.
Gotcha.
And then I saw that he was doing that beach scene, and I thought it was cool. The only thing that took me out of it was I was like, okay, I'm not an artist, nor do I paint. But the times I've gone to paint night, something like this big takes me like an hour to do anything on. And he painted this whole wall in what felt like 40 minutes.
This should have taken hours and hours, if not days. If he planned it out well enough ahead of time, it's believable he could have done this in a day, maybe. But
his mom was running in the morning.
That's true.
When she caught him.
I guess I was thinking, you know what? You're right. He should have started at night. It should have been nighttime.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it was, because the first scene... No, it wasn't, because it was daylight. Because we saw the Grid Battle Force at dusk. Or twilight. I guess it was when the sun was coming up. If it was when the sun was going down, he should have, especially if it was a secret, Yeah, he should have been painting at night in the beginning and then be finishing up in the morning. And I
Yeah.
guess I thought that's what happened because I just corrected that in my head. But you're right. This would have taken
Yeah,
more than the hour or two before his.
Yeah, the amount of time they alluded to was like if he went right as the sun went up and he happened to be walking by with his paint stuff,
Yeah.
maybe 4 hours. There's no way.
It's highly unlikely. Yeah. And his mother even says, "What are you doing up so early?" So clearly it's still early at that point.
Yeah.
Even. And then
So
here's
that
his actually.
immediately I was like, okay.
That is a fair point. I'll give you a Ninja Steel for that.
Ninja Steel.
But it didn't ruin it for me. That was just like they're not taking into account how long things like this take to do. But his mom shows up. She's out jogging in the morning, and she's like, "What do you do up so early?" And he's like, "Oh, I found this paint artist painting and I chased him off," which is also funny too because it's not like he was graffitiing. He was doing a nice mural and he's like, "Get out of here!" Like if that was what really happened.
Yeah,
and the guy
I
was so
know.
scared he left all his stuff and he's like, and I'm cleaning it up. It's like, and his mom's
He's like, oh, look at my hands.
Right.
Oh, so dirty. Ooh,
I
paint.
know.
Creativity. Get out of here.
But what I love is that his mom is like good job, and he's like, yeah, who would ever want to paint a mural? And like what a thing. And she's like, well, I guess some people just have a lot of time on their hands, or a lot of time to waste.
A lot of time to waste.
Yes, yeah, that a lot of time to waste, I guess. And that
right
is
out of the
terrible.
gates, I'm like,
yeah.
this is the episode where I hate
Yeah.
the commander again.
Yeah, because it's not even like they have a lot of time there. It's time to waste. Like art is definitely a waste of time. I hate that beauty. Forget it. I preferred it when it was a graffiti wall. It's
Yeah.
but fair. I mean, that's consistent with how she's been, and that makes it
Yeah.
makes sense why he's so afraid to tell her. And like, so I'm fine with all that. It just makes her look like a
Yeah.
jerk.
Yeah, very much so.
So then he goes back to base and he's cleaning off the paint, and Nate and Steele are there, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, we're remodeling our house," and he's lying. And I literally had to be like, "Okay, I understood why he lied to the commander," but I'm like, wasn't there an episode where it was revealed to his teammates that he likes art? Like there was a whole thing with that, so why is he lying? That makes no sense. But what I do like is that Steele's like, "Oh, I must have forgotten that." like you never knew.
Oh yeah,
Steele.
and I like he's like, Cruz must be rubbing off on me.
Right.
He's like, I don't remember.
Yeah. So that I like that, but I was like annoyed at Ravi, like, why are you lying for no reason?
Yeah.
And then he gets a call from Devin and the other Rangers on the news. They're saying, "Oh, there's this mystery mural appears overnight," which is another good headline, like garbage disaster. And they're saying we don't know who did it, but everybody's loving it and blah 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 blah. And they're like, "Oh, you got to come down here and see it." And he's like, "Oh, I wonder who did it." And Devin's like, "What? We know you did it. What are you talking about?" And
he's like, oh, how did you know? It's like, because we're not dumb. and
Yeah, we know you like to paint. This
art.
has been established already. And I was like, okay, good. So I didn't misremember. So why did you like? But then he turns around. Sorry, there's a picture of Devin. Then I got my screenshots out of order. But then he turns around and Nate and Steele are there, and they're like, "Wait, did you paint this?" And he's like, "Yeah." But I'm getting ahead of myself because am I? Let me just check my screenshots real quick here.
You're not. Yeah, because then Nate calls him out and was like, "Dude."
Oh, that's
here's the
after.
bull-"
Okay, you're
Yeah,
right.
it's
You're right.
like-
But I
it's-
am getting ahead because they have the phone call. Then we see what Ben and Betty do in that area. Then we go back to Grid Battle Force. So that's why I was
Oh, is
confused.
it? Oh,
So the
yeah,
Ben and Betty
Ben
thing.
and Betty.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben and Betty joke.
Yes.
Yay, nay, or in between.
I will say it's one of the better ones.
Yes.
But there's a part I don't love and a part I hate. The idea.
So
Good.
you first.
The idea that we want to get a picture and I'm going to get up on your shoulders and we're kind of being goofy, fine with all that. That works.
Yep.
The fact that he takes a step to the left and there happens to be a skateboard lying there that he steps on bothers me a little bit because it's super convenient. And not that I was ever a great skateboarder, but I was a skateboarder at one time. And two things I could tell you. One, you never put your skateboard down like that. Never. It's super unsafe. It could roll away. Whether you're being selfish or not, you wouldn't put it that way. You would hold it or you would lay it against something. It's just nobody leaves their skateboard that way, especially in the middle of a crowd. So that just seems really irresponsible and unrealistic to me. And the other thing is, if you step on a skateboard, he steps oops, and he steps on the skateboard, there's no way he'd go, woo! What would happen is he'd either step on it and it would kick up, or he'd step on it and it would slip out. So the physics of how that would work bothered me. Now, understandably, it's comedy. It's sort of cartoonish. The fact that he rode away on it I could get over, even though it doesn't make sense physics-wise, but it really bothered me that somebody would just leave their skateboard there. And if they were gonna do that, being Power Rangers, they should have made a point of like, boy, that's why skateboard safety is important, and you can't just leave stuff lying around. All of that though, I'm nitpicking. Wasn't a huge thing. It's just because I used to skate. I'm like, this would never in a million years happen. They start like rolling around, both of them making great faces. Both the actors doing a good job performing.
Yep.
Then she grabs like a light post or whatever that is and starts spinning around.
Yep.
Grabbing it is fine. Flipping over once maybe, go to that, but it like does that cartoony like woo, like a pinwheel that and it looks fake. It's not even like she doesn't look like a gymnast. She looks like somebody took her and that's what happened. They animated the image. And it's just, again, more of that, like, they're already cartoony characters. The actors are moving their bodies and their faces in a good way. They're having pratfalls. They're doing all this stuff. Whenever they use, like, CGI to put that extra stuff in, that's what really kills it for me. Like,
that bothers me,
You don't need that. We've had pratfally, goofy, clowny comedians since the days of silent films. And you don't need to put the CGI on top of it. It doesn't make it funnier. It makes it look faker and worse. Yeah. So I don't know why they do that because, like I said, this gag, I'm fine with it. I thought the performers did a good job, and then they put that in. So that part bothered me. That was not counting the Cheetah Beast Blaster, was my least favorite part of the whole episode, was when she started flipping like a cartoon.
Yeah. What I will say is my new headcanon for Ben and Betty is that the only thing I can think of is, have you seen like a handful of Jackie Chan movies?
Yeah, I've seen a fair amount.
Okay, most of his American ones, depending on the role, he's really good at selling you on being able to look incompetent, but like somehow beat his foes, especially with stuff around him.
Yes, yeah.
And this is what I think in my headcanon is Ben and Betty have super good, like natural athletic ability considering everything else stacked again. They just don't know how to hone it, which is why like she flipped around like that. He was able to ride a skateboard without falling off with her on his shoulders. And that is my headcanon, that they're competent, just not honed.
Okay. I could see that. I always thought actually Ziggy from RPM reminded me of Jackie Chan.
That was the other thing I was going to bring up is right when Ziggy gets his powers, he's like, oh, whoa. And then he's like, somehow I'm beating these guys.
Yeah, like he's dodging punches out of cowardice and they're punching and hurting their own hand and stuff like that.
Yeah. So like that's what I think with them. And that's why with both parts of the Ben and Betty physical joke, we'll get to the other part later. That's why I'm like, okay, that's my headcanon now, and I dare you to tell me otherwise.
Sure.
In the comments below.
Yeah, I mean, that's a plausible explanation. But she does that, and then Ben continues onto the hot dog stand, and he hits it, and a bunch of stuff flies up. And again, very kind of classic way to go. That didn't bother me. It was just a little cartoony thing in the middle. Yeah. That all happens while he's on the phone with Devin. Then he's like, come on, dude, we know it was you. So he hangs up. Then Nate Steele's a little bit clueless. He doesn't quite get it, but Nate's like, what are you doing? It was you. He's like, yeah. And here's the thing. This is where we might start disagreeing. I loved this scene.
I did too.
Oh, okay. Because Ravi lied unnecessarily, got called out, and he's like, the actor did a really good job too of like emoting like, I don't know why. Like, I'm just so used to lying, and hiding it. And Nate doesn't flip out at him and be like, well, I'm not going to talk to you or any of the like weird overreaction stuff we had season 1. He's like, look, man, it's not cool. Like, I get what you're saying, but like, how'd you feel if I did that to you? And he's like, no, you're right. And it's like a really good moment between the two of them that makes the good message Power Rangers wants to make, but it's not super cheesy and overdone. And both the actors do a good job. And then Steele is even like, wait, what's going on? Whose house is being remodeled? So they threw a little comedy in that worked. So I love this scene.
Yeah, I 100% loved it. And the other reason I think I liked it a little more than you is that I, out of the two of us, am the biggest Ravi critic.
I thought you were going to say fan.
Season 2, knock on wood, well, it could be at some point. Like, they've changed my mind on it.
Yeah.
Everything he did, I got. They didn't apologize for anything they didn't need to. They didn't try to make him a type of way. Like, this feels like a natural character progression, whereas before they would shoehorn things with him and sometimes shoehorn things with Devin, where it's like, that's not how you guys have made us like see them so far. And like it's really shown how he's grown since episode 1 of season 1, where he's like, I can't have a girlfriend, I broke up with her. It's all about what my mom says and this and that. And this episode's like, hey, Like, I'm already open with my girlfriend, who's no longer a part of Grid Battle Force. I think we don't really know.
Yeah, unclear. Unclear.
Yeah, and now that I literally just realized we didn't see Blaze and Roxy the whole episode.
Right, and last episode we saw them, but we didn't see Scrozzle. It's like they've gotten so many characters now. Well, that gets into another point I was going to bring up later, but it's been a long time since we saw the Beast Bots do anything other than be in the mech for half a second. You notice that?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All
I
of
wonder
it,
if
like,
they have too many
inconsistent.
characters to like keep track
Yeah.
of or something. Which honestly, I would rather they rotate them in and out and give them each a time to shine than just have them sort of
Yeah.
standing in the background doing nothing. But
Yeah.
So okay, so we're agreed then there.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Blaze and Roxy, who, they're always like, I'm going to steal this special thing. And they, like, got a lock. And I thought it was funny
That's
because
unlocked.
it's unlocked. He grabs the lock, which you can get anywhere in the world. But I love
Exactly.
that he's like, all too easy. And it's like, yeah, he picked up a lock. Yeah. It's like, what?
So this is where I started to have problems with the episode.
Okay.
And probably not for the reasons you think. So they find a lock, and they go, "Oh man, this is way too easy. This is exactly what we need." And they're like, "Yeah,
that
and
was
they
goofy.
Make this monster.
Yeah, that was goofy, but it didn't bother me that much. I thought it was funny more than anything else.
I kind of looked and was like, "Okay, here's where it progresses and snowballs."
Okay.
They make Lockatron or whatever we're gonna call him. I don't remember.
Keytron.
Keytron, close enough.
Yeah.
So they make Keytron, voiced really well, cool design.
Oh, hold on a second. Let me stop you. Because at this point, we have a fun fact provided to us by Matt Kendall Clare.
Fun fact time.
Fun fact time. Keytron, I did like the voice. You're right. And the voice of Keytron was an actor named John Lee. And John Lee has done a couple things for Power Rangers, a couple voices and stuff. But let me pull this up real quick. But what we might know him from, if I do this right, yeah, there we go. He was Sudsy in the episode where Devin worked at the car wash. He was Sudsy.
Okay.
Another character we might know him as is Brownbeard the Pirate. Not from this season, but from your favorite season, Operation Overdrive, an episode we've even seen because it was episode 6. So that was good. And I was really excited when I found that out for you because I knew that you'd be very, very happy that, a character from your favorite season was showing up. So, yeah.
So Keytron's there.
Wait, hold on.
Hold on. My favorite season.
Okay, what were you saying? Go ahead.
Oh no! You spliced it. I know you did.
No, just go ahead. No need to react to anything. Just keep going.
Anyway, so the thing with Keytron is they make Keytron. They make this big deal about finding this lock. Keytron's cool. Everything we said. Then Keytron's like, "Hey, guess what? My magical power is that I could break into anything." So then he just lets them into Grid Battle Force. I'm like, okay, this monster seems a little OP. Whatever.
I have no problem with that though. Like,
here is the thing.
Okay.
We're gonna get to at the end. Then tell me if you have a problem or don't have a problem.
Okay.
Right now, totally fine that you don't have a problem.
Okay.
So we go in. Ravi, who is gonna go take some much needed appraisal for his art.
Yes.
Or praise. Finds him, is like, "Whoa, what are you guys doing here? This is obviously odd that you got into here when it was locked."
Yeah.
Whatever. Really cool forward roll into the morgue.
Yep. Hold on.
That
I have
was
a
awesome.
screenshot. Let me find that. Yeah. I have a quick screenshot. I didn't get it, but yeah, that was awesome. I love that. When it happened, I'm like, whoa, that was great.
And then right here, what is the way that the Rangers always beat everybody?
They use a gun.
This Keytron monster goes, "Hey, just kidding. I'm locking your gun. You cannot use guns."
Yes, that's awesome. You didn't like that?
It is awesome.
Oh, okay.
Everything I'm saying, he can get into everything, kind of OP, but whatever. Locks the guns, awesome.
Also, when he does that, there's a close-up I'm showing right now of his eyes glowing. He's like, "You're on lockdown." And I didn't realize how cool his design was until they did that close-up of his eyes.
Yeah.
And then, Ravi tries to shoot his gun, and it doesn't work. And also what I like, it clicks. It kind of sounds like a camera click, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Yeah. But no, maybe so far, other than the Betty flipping thing, I've liked everything in this episode. The lock thing was kind of goofy, but they made a funny line about it, so that made up. So I'm down with everything in this episode. He tries to fire, and I had the same thought of like, oh, they need the guns to win. And like, so far you like it as well?
Except for the grievances I had with the beginning of the episode, yes, I like everything.
Okay, all right. So you're still on board, and he can't fire his gun, and then then Gold and Silver show up. Nate and Steel show up, right?
Yep. I
And
love this because
me too. Go ahead.
when Steel rolled, I'm like, are they using Sentai footage in like a wrong way? This seems dumb.
Right.
And he rolls. I wonder if they like reversed it, but he rolls underneath the foot of Keytron.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? And then he jumps up, shoots him. Ah, you fell for the old roly
Yeah,
poly.
yeah, I love
Perfect
that.
Steel. Love.
Yeah,
No,
and he
we're
says it like
we're,
it makes
amping
sense.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, that was great. I agree completely. So once again, I'm waiting for us to disagree because that was great.
You'll see what I mean, and it'll be hard for you to refute. So, um,
The other
eventually,
the Red Ranger
Oh, you
shows up
first.
and he's like, too many Rangers, I'm getting out of here, and that's the end of that encounter.
Yep.
Then we cut back to the cyber dimension of Crystal Evil.
Oh,
And,
wait.
Oh.
One thing I did want to note
Yeah.
to your previous point about Beastbots is he rolls up with Zoe on cruise as a motorcycle, which we
Yes.
have not seen in a while.
Right. I haven't looked this up, but I'm very certain that this is an early episode of Go Busters that they're airing out of order, similar to last week.
Got you. Okay.
And I think that's why we see Cruise. I think that's why we don't see any power-up modes, with the exception of the gun, which is American-only footage. And I think that's also why when the Ultrazord fights later, there's the dome comes down again. Everything about this points to them. This is an earlier episode in Sentai.
Yep. Let's
So
see.
Crystal Dimension of Evil, and and Evox is not very impressed with the performance, and Skrull's was like, this plan was not that great a plan. You're just gonna get inside, whatever. I have a better one, as usual. And I like how Skrull comes in all cocky and stuff. And he wasn't in the last episode, so this episode he's coming in hard. Like, here we go, Campbell Cooley time. And so he comes in and he's like, we're gonna use the paint, and they're making fun of him. They're like, oh, whoa, they're painting the wall. Who cares? That's boring. He's like, no, idiots, it's explosive. And then he blows up the thing he just painted. And it's like, that is not a bad plan. Like, I don't know if it's better or worse than getting into Grid Battle Force, but like, fine. Like, exploding paint, whatever. But what really works is when Evox talks about Ravi. I'm sorry, Skrull and Evox talk about Ravi lying about being an artist. And I'm like, oh, what a great thing to exploit. This is smart. The bad guys being smart. I love this. And also the infighting of like Blaze and Roxy feeling angry and making them look dumb. I like that too. And so they say, well, who's going to be the artist? Well, we're going to take what was his name again? Keytron, and like give him the human form using some more effects, which they address.
They're like, we're going to need a lot of it, but I can turn him into a human.
Yes. So I like that. And he becomes this sort of eccentric, over-the-top French artist, kind of similar to what James Davies was with the over-the-top dancer. But again, it's not a real person. It's this idea of what an artist is by the bad guys.
Yeah.
Fine. What's interesting, two things about this. One was that I remember, I forget what it is, but there's like a Instagram that has like Power Rangers casting news and stuff, like who's been cast, and they were looking for someone to play an artist. And I remember saying like, oh, if I lived in New Zealand, I would totally go out for that, you know?
Yeah.
But whoever the open casting was didn't get it. Because do you know who this is?
No.
It is Kelson Henderson, who played the voice of Cruz, amongst other things. I most know him for his role. Let me put it on screen here. As Mick from Ninja Steel. He was my favorite part of Ninja Steel.
And he was on SPD as thank you.
Yeah, but unfortunately I haven't seen SPD, but yeah.
I know I'm forgetting his name, but he was on there for a while.
Yeah, and he's been on a lot of seasons, both as a voice actor and as a face actor. But this is again bringing back another character. Like this is like I think the third actor that's come back not playing their character, but it's fun. Like maybe it's because it's a anniversary season, but I feel like that's the stuff they should do all the time. Because like kids may or may not know. Older fans do and appreciate it and love it. And if you're going to hire an actor anyway, not that I'm saying you shouldn't give new actors a chance from time to time, but like for these little bit parts, it's fun to bring back actors that we know. It gets us more invested. It makes it more of a legacy show. They do stuff like that. We've talked before in Sentai and Ultraman and things like that all the time. So I like that they're doing that more in Power Rangers now.
Excuse me. One thing I liked, and this goes back to grievances we've had with previous episodes, as Keytron is transforming, they just slip in that throwaway line. I'm going to have an accent.
I love that. Yes.
And then he has the French accent, and I'm like, thank you. Because he's, getting hyped up to impersonate.
I absolutely love it. Like, throwaway line justifies everything.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Is like everything so far, except for the beginning, pretty good stuff.
But even the beginning wasn't that big of a deal. That critique wasn't that big a deal. So then the mayor comes over. Evox turns back into the mayor, and he's like, "And I'm gonna clear the way to make sure you can do paintings." And like, all works good, makes sense. What happens next? I already forget. Oh, okay.
Oh,
so,
they show up. So
Yeah.
they show up, and the mayor's there, and it's like, "Oh, Dad, I never see you. You kind of abandoned me. What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, son. I'm here because I'm trying to get a mural painted
Right.
because of my work with MorphX stuff."
I love the idea that the commander right here is dying inside and is just like, I hate art. This is a waste of time and resources, but I have to listen because he's the mayor. And I just picture her being like, great, sir. Yes, art. And just like,
Oh, a mural? Wow, what a great idea, sir.
Yeah.
Yay.
And so he bumps out of the truck, and there's this whole weirdness because, Ravi's the artist, and all the Rangers know it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're the artist," and the commander's like, "Well, you saw him, you chased him off." He's like, "I guess I forgot, yeah." And then Pierre says some arty thing like, my soul feels it, and then I brush dances away," and Steele's like, "Whatever that means." Like,
Steel is. I'm glad Steele's in every episode. I know that we love the Beast bots and they're not in every episode. I'm glad he is in every episode.
Agreed. Well, because he's a Ranger, so it'd be weird if he wasn't.
Yeah, that's the only reason he's there in every episode.
So then they walk away like, "Oh, we're gonna go show you the wall," and the Rangers are like, "Oh man, you did that. Why didn't you say?" And he's like, "Well, cause my mom, like she's wanted me to follow in her footsteps. I've been wearing uniform since I was a kid, and like it's so important. And she hates art, thinks it's a waste of time, and I don't want to let her down. And like, all makes sense with everything we've seen. And again, his delivery really good. Like there's like all the civilian acting in this episode is like above average, I think.
Most of it is good.
Yeah, and so then I froze on this. I have the closed captions on, and I just thought it was funny that he's like, "You know what? You're right. I gotta stop lying. Inspiring music swells." It's on the screen. I was like, "Ah, it was." I did like the music this episode. I will say. It worked exactly the way it was supposed to. But what I love, again, doing things right. Zoe's like, "Hey, you're disappointing her by lying to her, and you really should stop. Whatever you think you're doing wrong, it's worse." And he's like, "You're right." And I thought it was gonna be a thing where like it'd be too late, and then later at the end he's like, "I'm sorry I lied," but he's like, "I'm gonna go tell her right now." And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what you should do. You learned a lesson, you changed your mind, you're immediately gonna rectify it because who knows who this artist is. You're gonna stop it. Like again, awesome. I feel like that wouldn't have happened season 1. Like everybody's like, time to act on this new thing. So they come running up not so fast in time to stop them, which I thought was great. Do you want to interject?
Yeah, so I did like, as they're like saying, "I was the artist, I don't know who this guy is, I lied to you, blah, blah." I love that they added that Mayor Evox and the artist are kind of looking at each other, and he's like, "Yeah, like, I guess you should kind of do whatever now.
Yeah.
The plan is foiled, do what you gotta do." The one thing I did not like, they have buckets of this explosive paint. So what do? Ineffectively throw it on the ground at everybody.
I was fine with that. Here's why. He comes up, he's talking to his mom, and they're having this moment. "I painted the mural, you lied to me, blah, 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 blah." And what do the bad guys do? Attack. They don't wait around. They're like, "Oh," they have the moment you said, and then they attack. Now, is the attack the best ever? No, but they're kind of improvising. This is what they were supposed to do. And it's being led by Tronics, who are not the brightest. So they're just like, "Okay, throw paint, go." So that was it the most effective attack? No, but theoretically they're throwing explosives at them. So I just like that they took advantage of the fact that the Rangers were distracted and immediately attacked and made an explosion. It wasn't the most effective attack, you're right. But then the artist does this cool kind of transformation, which we haven't seen that effect before, into Keytron, and they all kind of rip off and their Tronics underneath. I thought that was a really fun scene. I like that they took the initiative.
Yeah.
I mean, your argument is that they should have done something better with the explosive paint than just throw it and explode it.
Their whole goal was to paint the wall of Grid Battle Force and get in. I get having to change stuff at the last minute. They had like 5 or 6 Tronics. I feel like they could have done half and half, blown into the wall, started going in, and then attacked the Rangers simultaneously. And there were things they could have done more effectively.
Here's the thing. You're not wrong, but I can explain that. I'll be the defender this time.
I know.
Tronics are idiots. The average I always forget not the Giga drone, but the regular Keytron.
Robotron.
Yeah, Robotron. Thank you. Robotrons are not all idiots, but they're grunts. They're soldiers. They don't have big
Yeah.
plans. They're a blunt instrument. You point. Evox was there. Evox could have given a better plan, but he was the mayor. And so it even was like, and I love the moment where the actor's like, "Oh no, what is happening?"
Dude, I was gonna say,
I thought that was really funny.
I loved this was the best bad acting I've seen.
Yes,
where he's like,
yeah,
oh no,
Yeah, that was great.
I had no clue, and she's like, yeah, let's get out of here. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, but then she says you got to. So he couldn't be the commander. He couldn't be like, "Here's the plan, everybody." So because Evox couldn't lead them, they're just like, "Well, let's attack." And there's the Rangers here, and they're just like, "Well, we got to destroy the Rangers," So it wasn't the best plan, but it makes sense because it came from them and not from Evox.
Yeah, I get. I feel like they should have at least put some of it on the wall, just because that was the goal from the.
But what's the point of blowing a hole in the wall if the Rangers can't get the Rangers are attacking them from behind? Like, again, it would take coordination. You two do this. You two come with me. That they're not at that level. They're just grunts.
I guess. I don't know.
Blaze and Roxy maybe could have done that. Scrozzle could have done that.
Yeah, we've seen enough things in the past where we've seen them coordinate attacks on multiple fronts, and I think I was just a little bummed that at this point it wouldn't have been like, hey, we're gonna attack 3 different ways now. Again, Scrozzle, send your Giga drone. I know it's a kid show, and I'm overanalyzing.
No. We overanalyze everything. I'm not saying it's a kid show, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying because Evox couldn't change the plan, Blaze, Roxy, Scrozzle weren't there. We had a grunt leading some mindless drones, and he was just like, "Well, let's get them." That makes sense to me. It would make less sense unless they had a plan ahead of time. Like, if things go wrong, here's what we're gonna do. Blaze Rocks, that wasn't the plan. They didn't have it all set up, so the plan went bad, and they just attacked. And I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Good. Ninja Steel to me.
I'm trying to think. Is next right when he goes back? And he's like, this plan went awful.
No,
or I don't
know
that exactly
that happened before. This was the revised plan, because Evox leaves as the mayor, and they blow everything up, and then Keytron fires at the Rangers and locks them all down so they can't use their weapons. Is what happened.
Oh yeah, that was cool where he did it on the little teleporter things.
Yes. And what I like, the fight that ensues is good, average. It was fine. But they're like, we don't need weapons. And then there's a lot of Steel jumps onto a box, and a lot of the kind of Jackie Chan fighting we were talking about. And then you see Devin picking up a barrel and hitting him with it. And then you see Ravi's fighting with a broom. And this is another thing. I remember them doing that a lot in the beginning of season 1. And that's when once again, this is probably earlier footage, because for whatever reason in the beginning of Go Busters, they did a lot of environmental fighting stuff. And so we're seeing that again. And it was kind of a cool callback for us, having not seen it in a while. And so they still win. And then we cut back to the Cyber Dimension of Evil and have a great screenshot that I know you can't see.
Cyber Dimension of Crystal Evil.
Crystal Evil, yes. And the mayor's like, wait, let's see. I need more Morph-X! So before I transform. But what's weird about this is he needs Morph-X to stay as the mayor and not be in his Evox form, but he was already in the Crystal Dimension, so he's safe. He turns into Evox, whatever, but he was acting like he was in the middle of Times Square about to be exposed. So it was just,
I think because he needed to get back, and he only went back as an emergency to get more Morph-X.
That's fair, and that's probably true, but I still just love this seemingly unnecessary screenshot. I like the acting from the mayor's actor this whole episode.
And then the second he transforms, he's like, it doesn't matter, and then plugs it.
And but I also like that they address, because they we're gonna send a Giga drone. But he says, Scrozzle says it's going to have Gamer Drone's dome projection technology. So they're addressing.
Cool.
Yeah,
they're addressing the callback of that. So as of right now, actually, I'll wait till after the Zord fight.
You've had a couple nitpicks, but generally we've agreed. Even with that fight with the paint, you're like, I didn't like that, but it didn't.
After the Zord fight is where my nitpicks.
Okay, because I feel like I'm saying this episode's great, and you're like, it's pretty good. Which isn't a huge disagreement up to this point.
Keep going.
Okay. All right. So then, cutting back to the fight, another indicator that was probably early is we see Yellow Ranger using a jackrabbit kick, and then we see Ravi using his gorilla strength. And there's a couple jokes and puns in this episode, and they all land. I think they all worked. Because he said, sorry to hold you up, guys. And Keytron says something when he was running around, he's like, I got a bolt. And
Yeah,
They
that
all
was
worked.
what he said.
They
Yeah.
all worked for me.
Yep.
And so then Steel kicks over a bucket of paint and blows it up, getting the rest of the Tronics.
Yep.
And then you see Devin like using his speed, like all good stuff, but all remind me of early season stuff.
Yep.
And they are at the point where they're kind of winning, but they haven't won the fight. The commander shows up. This was a good commander moment. She's got
This was cool. She
yeah.
blasted, and then she's got dual blasters.
Yes. She's got the regular blaster that she shot with, but then she's got, I forget what it's called, like the super blaster, like the cheetah,
The
not
Ultra
cheetah.
Beast X Ultra Cannon.
That
or something.
sounds right. Yeah. And so she's like, I figured you guys could use some weapons, and I'm like, that's a hands-on leader. That's great.
Firepower. Catch this giant blaster.
Yeah, she's not a field commander, but she's a commander, and like so she chucks it over to Devin, and now that he has a gun, he shoots him once and wins immediately, and that's the super gun, so fine. And that was again, this was American footage, obviously, because we had the commander in it, so the only like power up we saw was in this American footage. From that point, now the Gigadrone lands, crash. I think
before the Gigadrone is addressed, this was the worst acting I've ever seen from the commander. It was so robotic.
Really? I didn't think it was that bad.
Like, I listened and I had to do a double take. I'm like, I was waiting for her to transform into like Roxy or something. It was so robotic.
Oh, really?
It was like Rangers. The Gigadrone is in Sector Charlie 8 Delta.
Oh, I got you. Not when she comes in and does the blast, but afterwards.
No, after that.
You're probably right. I didn't notice because I was like, that was cool, and I was not thinking about like what was happening next.
No, I was taken aback by it. I was like, okay, whatever.
Fair.
And then they go, and we've addressed this, when they go to fight the Gigadrone, immediately an Ultra.
Immediately an Ultra Sword, which usually we don't know what the Sentai footage is. I usually assume that there is maybe a moment before that, but that they, cut stuff out. Well, maybe not though, because it does seem like maybe when the dome falls, they have to be the Ultra Zord to get into it. Although they've never said that. Maybe like that's a thing in the Sentai footage.
I think so. Now I'm gonna be the defender. Okay. So I think the Sentai footage they're using is from late in the season, which is why it's always in the Ultra Zord. The dome is something that happens where they fight old Gigadrones. And that's why we always see early footage from the season when it's before they do the Zord fight, and then after they're always an Ultra Zord. So I think it's kind of like the end of last season where they were in the Cyber Dimension of Evil, and then they fought all these other old Gigadrones that Scrozzle put out.
Oh, so do you think the dome
in the Sentai?
Do you think the dome didn't exist in Sentai, and that's actually in the Cyber Dimension, and they're using footage from the Cyber Dimension?
Yeah, or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, I haven't seen it. Obviously, I don't know if you're right, but like the fact they're all short
don't either.
Fights.
That's just speculation.
Yeah, I mean, somebody could tell us in the comments, but that's a good theory. No, not until confirmed. So then they see the dome, and I do like the scene.
Just steal.
I do like the scene. No, it doesn't work that way. I like the scene when they cut in. They did this last time too, where there's like it's sort of like the darkness, and then you see the cut, and it's like the bright sky as the Ultra Zord goes on its way in. Like it's reused footage, but I enjoyed that. I thought this fight was going to be over as quick as the last one, where it'd basically be 1 or 2 hits. It was a little bit longer. Oh, I know the part you're going to hate. So they come in like, let's take this guy out quick, and they hit him with the lance and do some damage, but don't destroy him in one shot, which is what I thought was going to happen. Then Keytron locks down the Ultra Zord, and again in this Dark Dimension, Ultra Zord looks awesome with the light up eyes and stuff.
Yeah, really cool.
So they lock him down, and they're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And around this time, they talk to Cruz. He's like, Cruz, what are we going to do? And he's like, oh, I'll figure something out. He has some one line. And it was at that moment that I'm like, wow, that's the first time we've talked to Cruz in like a really long time, like all season. Yeah, and that's when it hit me that like we haven't seen any of the Beast Bots do much in a long time, which is kind of a bummer. Again, I understand having to cycle through stuff, but like we're your best friends, and we had episodes about friendship and togetherness, and then it's like just fly the ship and don't even talk to me.
Like they're their personal assistants,
right? But so everything's locked down, but Cruz says, "Oh, the jet boots are the only thing not locked down." Would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, so the jet boots aren't locked. So right as Keytron's going to swipe at them, they jump up. They hover in the air. And Keytron kind of looks. Just stands still. and then they land on Keytron, which breaks the key, thus unlocking everything that was locked by it, and then they win with the Cheetah Beast Blaster.
Yes.
Very underwhelming.
Not the best fight. It was more than we got last episode. Although I did prefer that fight, if I'm being honest, because I loved how he grabbed it and then they shot him with it.
Yeah.
It was a little bit dopey that he just stood there. I could believe that it was two leaps of faith. One, that he stood there and foolishly got landed on. Two, that it broke the key and that set everything free. The key one bothers me less because that is Power Rangers 101. Everybody got turned into a pumpkin because of my staff. You break the staff, they're not pumpkins anymore. Whatever the thing, that happens constantly.
That part didn't bother me.
So it's mainly that he explain. Let your fury out. Here's a one shot.
So this episode inadvertently showed us that I thought last episode that was the most powerful Robotron and Gigadron.
Mm-hmm.
This not only ramped it up, but had like the dopiest ways for them to win, where it really bothered me. Like, this is at certain points I saw with this Robotron and Gigadrone, like what we saw at the end of Turbo, where I'm like, this lays out the groundwork where they theoretically could just get owned. Like, everything ability-wise that these monsters and drones are showing show that they could just beat the Rangers if they weren't incompetent. But I felt like they had to be written incompetently because it's episode 4 of the season 2.
But they all seem to have an Achilles heel. They're not unbeatable.
But it was dumb Achilles heels, though.
I thought the one last episode was a little dumber than this one. Because, again, the key being broken, ruining the power, that's the same as we've seen that a million times.
That part didn't bother me.
Okay.
The way that it went from, I can lock down your Ultra Zord, to, I'm going to stand still while you,
right, because it's raw power without intellect, which is the same reason they just attacked the Rangers instead of splitting up.
If they did the boots up and it like knocked him down and then they hit him, or if he swiped and fell and then they landed on him, like something other than we went up, hovered, dropped right on him when he locked down their morphers, guns, and Ultra Zord. That would
have been better. I completely agree. It was a small part of the episode, though. It wasn't the worst thing I've seen. It wasn't the most egregious of that type of thing I've seen on this season. And it was not the main point of it. Like, the Megazord fight in this one, like, really, the civilian stuff was the main point. Then the Ranger stuff, then the Megazord stuff. And I feel like the civilian stuff was all done awesome. The Ranger stuff was done totally fine. The Megazord stuff, not so great. But it was the smallest part of the episode, so it doesn't bother me that much.
But I'm saying they showed, like, the only thing I can really equate this to is, like, for those of you who have seen the Marvel movies, Captain Marvel is established to be crazy powerful. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can not have her win everything is by not having her involved.
Right.
And for this, they couldn't have that option, so they're like, we're just going to let them have a lapse in judgment or be dopey or something, and that's how we beat. Like, if you lock down the Ultra Zord and are semi-competent, and they had the hard light technology of Gamer Drone. Like, come on. You could have shot out Gigatrons or whatever hard light. Like, that's what bothered me. Is
Wait, no, no. The villains theoretically have hard light technology. That that big robot man did not. They said he was upgraded with Gamertron's dome capability. That was it.
Either way, they're trapped and their Zord doesn't work. There's zero reason that they shouldn't have gotten wrecked, and they're getting drained of Morph-X as they're in them. What should have happened, were this a better... no, I'm still raging. What should have happened is the Megazord gets wrecked. Like, bad. They have to bail out. It separates. All the Zords are in there. All the Morph-X gets drained. He bounces. They have to leave and figure out a way to get back to their Zords the next episode or two. I was going
to say, that'd be a 2-part episode, but you want it to be a multi-part episode.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. They've had parts of previous episodes, especially in season 1, that weren't necessarily 2-parters or 3-parters, but followed the same continuity where they weren't just one-offs. Where it's
Sure.
like, hey, we still haven't made the Megazord yet, so let's fight
Right.
in our Zords, and then eventually they become the Megazord and stuff
I'm
like that.
thinking of the things that are going to become later in the season, like not just the season finale, but the crossovers and all that stuff. And I'm thinking they're keeping it sort of more simple and low stakes and low production costs because of the stuff that's going to happen later in the season.
I agree with that.
That's the
Don't
real
make
world
this
thing.
monster so crazy powerful.
But again, I don't even necessarily disagree with what you're saying. It just doesn't bother me nearly as much. Like, it was a
That's
small
what I'm
part
saying.
of the episode.
It really, it's one of those things. They show that they have all this cool stuff, and it's kind of like my same grievances with Ben and Betty. I don't mind you having them do foolish things. I hate when you make them dumb. This monster locked the Ultrazord and stood there while it got
That is
a
dumb.
broken key.
I agree. That was dumb, but that was like the Betty flipping cartoon thing bothered me more, to be honest.
That bothered me less than this, and that's the difference.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on from your rage.
Rant over.
Okay.
But as we're talking about it more, I'm liking that a lot of the episode, but like those major things just bother me from an overarching plot perspective.
I think the other thing is, at this point we're almost at the end of the episode, and I had been thoroughly enjoying the episode the whole time. So when that happened, I'm like, oh, and then they won the Megazord fight. Whatever. Let's get back to Ravi and his mom, because that's what I really cared about. So it's like you're not wrong, but I just wasn't in the headspace of like, oh, this is a big fight. I'm invested, and it was like, this is the Megazord fight because they have to have a Megazord fight. And
I know, but it should have been a bigger one. But I get everything you're saying. I'm not refuting you. You're not refuting me.
No, it
bothered me more than it bothered you.
By a lot. By a lot.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I know.
So then Ravi comes back into the base. He finds his mom. They're looking for each other. And she's like, yeah, the lying to me was bad. He's like, I'm sorry. She's like, but what was even worse was me making you feel like you couldn't be yourself. And I'm sorry for that. And you can share anything with me. And then it gets a little hokey when she's like, how does painting make you feel? And he's like, happy. And it's like, okay, that's a little hokey. But she's like, well, I want you to do anything that makes you happy. Fine. It was a good ending. They hug. They resolved all the stuff that started a season ago. He goes and she's like, I think you need to sign it. So I'm fine with all that, and it ended appropriately. No?
Yeah, it was just kind of no. I'm not disagreeing. It's just funny that now she's had such a change of heart where every other episode where the two of them butted heads, it's like, why would you want to paint? Because I like painting. Drawing is a waste of time.
No, I think it was.
I guess I'll lie to you.
I think it wasn't that. I think it was she realized that he had been hiding his true self and denying. Like, she was like, I don't know my son. I forced my son to pretend to be a different person. I don't think it was that suddenly she loves art. I think she probably still thinks art's dumb or whatever. But she's like, oh, I want my son to be happy. I want to know my son. I've made a mistake. I think that's what happened. Was it a little quick? Yeah. And it was kind of like the Save Our Shores where the aunt was like, oh, I did the wrong thing. But I'm fine with it because I don't think it changed her mind about art. I think it changed her mind about her son. And,
I agree. It's just funny that, like, most of the problems they've had could have been solved so much sooner if it was like, oh, I should just accept you for who you are, and I guess you're a pretty good ranger without me putting any extra rules on.
Yes.
Whereas, like, I guess I'll let you date somebody that you actually care about, and I'll let you draw. Here we are.
But, again, I'm fine with that because it showed progression of both characters over time, and that's what we want to see.
No, I'm not. I know. It's just funny to me.
Well, let's see if this is funny to you. It ends with the Ben and Betty. Betty is still up on the pole, and we see some firemen, and they're like, "You got to let go." She's like, "I think I can," and she lets go, bounces, flies back up, grabs the pole, and she goes, "That was awesome!" Which again, I love that part of her personality.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And then they're like, if you want to be rescued, you can't keep grabbing onto the pole. And she's like, who wants to be rescued? This is awesome. So now she's into it.
No, she said, who wants to be rescued from fun?
Oh, is that what she says? That's amazing.
Yes.
That's a great line. That is a great line. And then she jumps and bounces. And then Ben's like, hey, can I have a turn? And they're like, they say something like no or whatever. And he's kind of like, or you too. Like, he kind of does like an awkward never mind, which he did once or twice before. I love when the actor does. I wish that he would get to do that more because it happened. I think it was like a basketball episode where he's like, yeah, let's go. Oh no, okay. Like, he does a good awkward and he did that this episode.
Like fade away of just like, hey, all right.
Yeah. So is that ending was one of my favorite Ben and Betty bits in the whole show so far. I don't know if it was my absolute favorite, but it was definitely up there.
It was up there for me as well.
Yeah. So that is the end of the episode. Do you want to? Do you want to go letter grade? How do you want to do it?
I guess I'll do mine first because
Do it.
mine's going to be influenced by yours either way. After going through the episode, certain things bothered me a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Like, overall, the episode was good. Certain things really bugged me because of the reasons I elaborated.
Right.
But in a totally neutral sense, this is a good episode. I would say a B+, some would argue an A-, which is...
You cut out B+, what?
I would say it's a B+, some would argue an A-, which is the grade you're going to...
No, you're incorrect. I'm going to give it an A.
Oh, there we go. That was my next guess.
Oh, was it?
I knew you weren't going to be in the B range. It was an A for you.
And I'll tell you why. There were a couple nitpicks, but far fewer than most episodes, and they bothered me less than most episodes. And I give it credit for two things especially. One, getting the civilian stuff so right, which is the hardest stuff to get right. Because when there's lasers and fighting and monsters, you could get a lot wrong, and it's still kind of fun. The civilian stuff is hard to get right to make it believable and wholesome and good values for kids, while at the same time not being super cheesy where you can't watch it as an adult.
That was the part. Like the best clip to show someone of like, oh, what was the best part of this episode is if you just show the Nate and Ravi exchange.
That was the scene of the show.
And then with the steel joke at the end,
that was
like,
the scene of the show.
Why I like the show.
Absolutely. So there's that. And on top of that, this was the definition of a filler episode. It didn't really connect to the stuff that came before. I mean, Evok's in it and stuff, but like it doesn't connect to any big, huge plans. It doesn't connect to stuff that's coming later. It doesn't build anything. It's all self-contained. I mean, like they kept it in universe as well as it could, but you could erase this episode and it wouldn't affect the show at all. It is a filler episode.
Correct.
It was
the goal of the villains was to break into the base and destroy their
That's
enemy.
Fine, but this is not a critique. There are always filler episodes. They have to be by the nature of the business. This was a great episode for a filler episode. It was a filler episode and it was a civilian heavy episode, and it still was really good. So if it wasn't that, maybe I would go B+ or whatever, but I'm giving it an A because it was taking a filler episode full of civilians and it did a really good job. You know what I mean? They're taking the two hardest things you could do and made me care, and I liked it way more than last episode, which was arguably more action packed. So yeah, A for sure.
It was a good episode. The only thing that bothered me and still is resonating with me is that this monster was so crazy good.
Said this already. All right. I think we're done here. I liked it.
We are.
I loved it. You liked it. We agree on the points that are bad. I'm like, well, whatever. There was a couple little bad parts. Who cares? And you're like, that ruined a letter grade for me. All right. Let's wrap this up. Come on, we've been going for a while here. This has been episode 4. This has been Action Activate. I have been Gazbot.
I continue to be the big Dawg Defender.
Do you? Well then, to you I say, to the power.
To the power.
And credits.
Later.
End credits are playing right now. Yep.
Are they still rolling?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Did somebody stop yet? Did you stop and look at the camera?
We're going to do that in a second, I think.
Really
I poke you, and then... no, we didn't.
Awesome.
Oh, there it goes. There it goes. We stopped looking at the camera.
I haven't seen it in real time in a long time, so I don't even know anymore.
Who cares? We're the worst.
It's just the end.
The end. Oh, no, I don't want to go live. I want to stop recording.